My topic of my spiritual message is a very sacred one to my heart. The title is The Gift of the Storm. How many of us have gone through storms in our life, or maybe are going through something right now? Amen. I think they all call it kind of ebb and flow. And one of the things that I thought of when I was preparing for this time today was being out in the ocean during a storm. Not when there's lightning, but has anybody ever experienced this, where you're out in the water and you're just feeling the elements and the power of those elements all around you? And one of the most favorite parts of that experience that I always think about is how little I feel when I'm feeling the power of the divine. And it reminds me that my mind is not the universe, that God and the divine, the universe, however you label that energy, really is running the show, and my mind does not know what the plans are. And so, a lot of people don't know. When they look at me, they see, Dr. Debbie, or they know my heart, or, the things I do out in the community, because I'm a big believer in heart service. But a lot of people don't know a little bit about my history, which I'm only going to briefly touch upon. And so, storms to me and my life growing up, it was just an everyday reality. I grew up in an extreme poverty. My mother was schizophrenic. There was a lot of abuse in the home, including sexual abuse. And so when you grow up in that way, you don't connect to the light in the same way as an adult. So it's taken me quite some time to do the healing work and to not allow the storms in my life to just knock me down and keep me down. I was listening. I love music. I believe that music is a healing tool and a way of inspiring our hearts and spirits. And one of the songs that has come up on my playlist lately, there's a line in that song that says, "Strength is not being knocked down. It's about standing up again." And I love that concept. And so in my life, there's been a lot of storms in many, many different ways, from extreme heartbreak and extreme losses. And ironically, today is the anniversary of my biggest storm. And I wasn't going to mention it, but I was like, okay, there's too much of a coincidence to not mention it from the universe. So 14 years ago at 7:04 a.m., I jumped off the Skyway Bridge. And I am here to live it. Thank you so much. It's now 14 years behind me, and I could never have imagined the life I live today. I had a lot of dreams when I was little, but because of all of what was going on in the home and all of the impact on my brain and life and heart, I never could really step beyond some of the storms in my mind. And so when it comes to this concept of the storm as a gift, one of the foundational thoughts and beliefs that I hold is that the storm is a mirage. And if somebody's out there going, oh yeah, well, where's my money? Where's my home? Where's my supportive people in my life? And where's all the things, that the losses and the pain? I'm not saying that from a human experience, storms are not hard. But from a spiritual experience, they are opportunities to refine us, to connect us to the highest version of ourselves, to lead us down the path of our dreams. The storms in our life are actually gifts. And so when I really learned to see the challenges in that way, it transformed my life. Because previous to encountering unity and encountering the metaphysical walk of life and all of the wonderful, amazing tools that that the unity movement provides, I didn't know how to view the storm as anything else but the pain and the loss and the fear and all the lower vibration energy. And once that I was able to understand, unity principle number one is God is in everything. The one source, the one power. Even in the worst moments of our life, God is right there. And so, unfortunately, 14 years ago, I ran out of hope, and I couldn't connect to anything I'd ever learned about spirit. I had a severe brain injury, and the doctor said that I wouldn't heal. And I ran out of hope. And I said, I can't, I'm done. And it's interesting about storms is that when they hit, especially if we're not constantly seeking the light, is that the storms can take over our minds and tell us some really awful things and keep us so limited in our lives. So if a storm is talking smack to you, do not believe it, because it's not. Most of the time, 90% of whatever your mind is saying during that time is not true. And so, once I understood that the universe was doing something. However, previous to this time, I would think, why is this happening to me? That's never, when you're thinking along that line of, this is happening to me again, I'm unlucky, whatever that lower vibration thought process is. And I used to do it for God 3 decades of my life. I didn't know anything else from where I had come from. And so the thought that most helps me now is, what is the universe trying to teach me? If I can keep that, whatever it is, and I've been knocked down so many times, even recently, I went through a mold experience where everywhere I moved there was mold, and I was horribly sick for years, not just once. We're talking like 5 or 6 times in a row. It toppled my whole life. Everything was in storage, and I was so sick. And nobody could figure out why until, anyway, I spent a lot of years now researching it, whatever, the mold stuff. And finally I gave up, and I was like, all right, universe, I'm just going to go to Paso Robles Beach and walk every day and ask you what's going on. Stepping out of my mind and saying, okay, how is this going to serve me later? And at this time, all of these people, long-term friends of 10, 20 years, were dropping out of my life for no reason. There was no logical reason that they were moving out of my life. So I was alone walking through this horrible experience with just a few close people. But and that experience of walking the water, it was the only thing I knew to do in that moment. After I'd been through all this other stuff, healing from the bridge and the trauma and all of that, it was the connection to that energy all those days that has so become a pillar of spiritual strength. So now when the storms come, because they keep coming, it's life, right? Different things, different, losses, pain, surprises. Now that pillar of that connection that was made during all those days of walking in that energy remains. And so when the storms hit and we're able to stand up and gather, not just our strength and courage, but with the connection of the divine, that it becomes like a muscle that we develop. And then over time, that stays with us when the storm passes, because it always does pass. And so there's a couple of things that really helped me along the way, because when the storm hits, it can be so powerful. I'm so heart-based that when losses hits, especially around love or relationships, it hits my life really hard. And there's a couple things, because I've been knocked down so many times. After a while, I'm like, universe, I don't know what's going on and what soul contract I have signed, but I am unsigning this contract. Give me other lessons. Somehow, something's wrong here. And finally, I'm like, okay. But what I didn't realize, after all those times, and so many different things, just awful things, car accidents that gave me brain injuries, and the mold saga it started for 9 years anyway. And then, and heartbreaks and betrayals and all these things. I'm like, universe, I don't know what's going on. I just wanted to hide in the house with my cats under the covers. It was just bad. And then, but there are a couple things that really stayed with me that now when a storm comes, I'm like, oh, I'm not believing you. I know this is just another spiritual test or another way of refining what my soul really wants here and really wants to do here. I believe that we are here to serve with our hearts and with our gifts. But sometimes it's scary. I'll be the first one to say, I did not want to be seen in the universe. I wanted to stay under the covers with my cats. I didn't want to be out being seen by anybody. I was afraid to be seen, and being seen as a child meant that I would be hurt. So it has taken me all these years to embrace the courage to just be seen. But I didn't want to be seen at all. So I believe that we have these gifts that someone out there needs. Maybe it's an animal, maybe it's a child, Maybe it's somebody else that's struggling in the same exact way you were 2 months ago. I have a spiritual mentor that always reminds me of this. We'll get on the phone, and she always says something, and she's always laughing at me. And I know that she's spiritually laughing at me, whatever I bring her. And she's like, well, it sounds like you're going to be able to help somebody else when they come along with the same exact thing. This is not what I want to hear at the moment, by the way. I want somebody to wallow and know whatever with me. No. She's like, oh, you're going to really be able to help somebody. And that's Reverend Linda McLeod. And so she's always like, sounds like you're really going to be able to help somebody in a short time. I was like, okay, Linda. She's always right, by the way, when it comes to that stuff. But, so here, when the storm hits, these are my go-tos, okay? These are the things that I know, this is like my checklist when a storm hits. Number one is acceptance. You just got to accept it. That's the first step. If you fight this storm in your mind, you'll never win. Because the storm is already there. Nothing you can do. Number two, don't think about the poor me or the self-pity energy. If you're stuck there, you're just going to go right into the blackness. Why do I know this? Because I've been there a lot of times. Okay, but if you can get on the other side of that thinking process and you think, okay, what is the spiritual meaning of this? What is this going to teach me? How is this going to refine me later for what I'm really meant to do here, to really help and love other people? If you can think on that level, rather than getting stuck in the energy of the loss or the pain or the shame or whatever it is, that lower vibration quicksand. If you can step beyond that and go to another place in your mind and say, God or divine universe, what are you doing here? And there are some things I still struggle in my life. Certainly when nobody's perfect. How am I going to, number one, navigate this really hard thing? God, help me figure the steps of navigating this situation. And give me the patience to get me on the other side of the experience so I can see what you're doing. Because in the big scheme, when we look back at things and all that we grow and learn and become and the things that we connect to, one of the greatest value of all the bottoms that I have hit in my life is at the very bottom it's really black. It's really black down there. I don't recommend going there often, all right? But when you're down there, you realize the power of your mind. And that's number 3, unity principle number 3, the power of our thoughts. When you're down in the blackness, you only have one place to go, and that's up, okay? Because you don't want to be there anymore, and you start to recognize what your mind is doing. Is it saying mean things? Is it criticizing you? Is it telling you you're worthless, unlovable, whatever, that there's no hope? Don't believe that voice. Because when you're down there, you realize, wow, my mind can think positive things. My mind can connect to the light. Well, let's say your mind can't get there, because I've been there. Been in the black, brain can't do anything else but beat me up and hate myself or whatever it is from the past trauma stuff, right? When you're there, if you can't step out of your mind, then stream positive information into your mind or try to practice clearing the mind. Because sometimes the mind is not your friend, especially if you're down there. I'll attest to that. And so sometimes for me, it was learning to meditate 30 seconds or a minute at a time, because the silence growing up wasn't safe. So to learn these new skills of connecting to the divine consciousness, that's unity principle number 4, prayer and meditation, connecting to the frequency of the divine. And maybe it doesn't look like meditation regularly like that for you, or breath work, or whatever it might be. I started with walking meditation. I could handle that. I could get out there, connect to nature, the water, whatever it might be. But when the storms hit, once you can shift your mind to a place of maybe curiosity, maybe not even belief yet, but curiosity. How could this benefit me later? What am I learning? What is the universe doing for my highest and best good? If you can kind of shift into that energy, all right? The next step is connecting to the light and the frequency of the divine in some way. And everybody's connection looks different. For me, it was kitty cats. That's how I started connected. I loved kitty cats. Cuddles just left to the earth of the spirit 2 years ago, 24 years old, my baby. But that connection, and my connection to the people my loved ones and the people I serve in my healing communities, and whatever it might be, it's the connection where I found that energy. It was the ocean, it was in writing, it was in, playing music. And so my question to you is, where do you find that frequency of the divine? Is it in children? Is it in energy medicine? Is it in, being an advocate for so many things, Laura? Is it in being connected to kids and teaching, teenagers and little ones, not little ones, but littler than us? Wherever you find that frequency, there's power in that frequency, especially during a storm, because it anchors you to something else beside the storm and the dark, lower vibration things. And so, once you're able to surrender the mind and connect to spirit, that's often when your intuition will kind of tap in. It will come through. If you can get to that place where you go to curiosity, then you can connect to the frequency of the divine, eventually you're going to get to a place of calmness if you practice it long enough. And that's where the intuitive divine information can come through you. Most of the stuff I do out in the universe doesn't come from me anymore. It's the divine intuitive connection. Even a lot of the healing journeys I've personally taken with my own brain and body, even though I love books and books were safe and my whole life and storage, whatever, is filled with books, and I love knowledge and content and research. It was safe for me for a long time, but that's not really what saved me. It was the intuitive information of the divine coming through. And everybody has access to that. That's your intuitive guidance, and that is leading you to whatever you're most meant to do here and serve here and be here and be enjoy here. And so the final thing and the final thought, that no matter what is happening in my life, and like I said, I've not had it easy in some ways, a lot of ways, is though embracing the belief that everything is working out for your highest and best good. Not just sometimes, not just a few times, every single time in every situation, it is working out for your highest and best good. You just can't see it yet. However, if your mind likes to run the show like mine, you're not going to be able to see the details of that until they happen. There have been so many times in my life where things have shown up in ways I could have never predicted. Even being in the Happiness Experiment movie. I was out there doing a moon ceremony, which I was walking through the mold experience, and me doing the mold, or the moon ceremony was another way of me connecting to the energy. And Gary King comes up and said, "Want to be in my movie?" I said, of course. I was scared to do it. I was like, do I really want to be known for this? This is not, Gary King, his son was lost off the bridge, and he's a big believer in suicide prevention, and we both have the same passion of healing trauma and trauma awareness. I was terrified, but the universe brought me that in a way I could have never fathomed, and I said yes. And, saying yes to the divine when it shows up is such an important thing, and sometimes it will be small things. It will be opportunities to connect. It will be a way of expressing a gift out in the universe. I had the opportunity to play music at a church Unity Gulfport a few years ago, and it was at a very low time. I had just lost my father and my partner, but I said yes. I was scared to death. I didn't want to be up there being seen. Are you kidding me? That's not safe. But anyway, the storms in our life are such tremendous blessings and gifts if we're able to view them from that perspective. And I'm not saying there won't be work, because there will always be work. You can't just say, no, you got to get off your butt and you got to get doing your spiritual work, your emotional work. I'm a big believer in 12-step recovery. I've been in 12-step recovery in several programs, 24 years. It's work to heal. It's work sometimes to get into spiritual action, to embrace that connection. But it's always of such great value because we're able to clear away the cobwebs of whether it be our family of origin, our trauma, our limited thinking. We're able to get out there and serve with our hearts and make a difference and connect to the joy within our hearts and our minds and our souls. And so there is a couple of quotes that I wanted to bring up that I love words. I always believe that words have such incredible power to transform our lives, and that words and books find us by Spirit. I believe that Spirit puts books and things in our way for us to shift. So I'm a big, I have a great love from Maya Angelou. And so one of the ones that I really liked was, have the courage to trust love one more time. Always one more time. Whether that be loving the self, whether that be loving somebody else, even when we don't want to, when we're looking at unforgiveness and the pain of that and the way that that halts our vibration in our minds and our hearts. But embracing love and believing in love one more time, that's powerful. Number 2 is my favorite Bible quote. Be still and know that I am God. And for me, the power of that statement, it always reminds me that my mind doesn't know anything. As much as I've spent my whole life putting information in my brain, it really doesn't know anything. The divine always knows, and that's where my trust needs to be. But also, this idea of being still, I'm not so good at that. I've had to really practice. And for like 9 years, I made that a goal of my spiritual goals, is to learn to be still. But the power of the stillness and being able to connect to that energy and then allowing that energy to flow through your life in some way out into the world, I think that's so powerful. And so, just a reminder, as you go out in your world and you're walking through life and walking through your loving experiences or whatever it might be, the storm is an illusion. It's refining your spirit and your heart and your mind to be able to express you out in the world to bless somebody else. And so I'm going to close with this. This is one of my other favorite quotes from Maya Angelou. Every storm runs out of rain. Don't forget. Wishing everybody a wonderful day.